Welcome to Universal Man, where we turn your flight into fight so that you can master yourself and conquer your goals. My name is Mark Webb, and I'm here to help you sharpen your masculine edge. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the subtle art of sacking up, or, as it's commonly said, manning up. Okay, manning up is this concept where it's like, all right, you confront this hard thing and you do it and you get it done and you stop being such a little whiny wuss about it, right? And this can be a very powerful and good concept, especially for men. It allows them to draw on a lot of power if they know how to use it properly. But if misapplied, this man up mentality can actually be super destructive and counterproductive. And so if you would like to make sure that you man yourself up rather than put yourself down, then watch this video. So life is hard, okay? There's no way around that, all right? And there's gonna be a lot of times where you just don't wanna do the hard thing. Our neurobiology is favorable toward this state of homeostasis. We wanna get into a place of comfort and then we wanna maintain that place of comfort. That's just how we're wired. Trying to break free from that is incredibly difficult. And that's why I often refer to this idea of, a prison of comfort. And our modern society, it really wants us to get in that prison of comfort because, there's just a near infinite number of ways in which you can kind of just float off into a pleasurable world. You've got porn, you got video games, you got Netflix, you got junk food, you got drugs, you got alcohol. You got all this stuff, and you can just go from, pleasure to high to pleasure to high to, this to that, and you never actually have to kind of come down until you realize that living like that is actually terrible, and you need to actually show up and face things in life, that you need to actually show up and get stuff done that might actually be difficult, and recognize that most good things and fulfilling things and meaningful things are on the other side of some kind of uncomfortable process. And so that's where the idea of manning up really shines. Manning up is this whole idea is like, okay, get stronger and get this thing done. Do the tough thing that you should be doing. And so, sometimes it means going after something, right? It means if you want to have 5% body fat and also have a large amount of muscle mass, well, manning up would mean deciding that you want that, doing the incredibly hard work that would take, and then, keeping it up, right? Own it, make it happen. But sometimes manning up means acknowledging that, hey, that thing that maybe a part of me wants, it's not actually worth the effort or worth that reward. And, I need to own that and own the fact that I'm not going to pursue that. So maybe it means all right, I'm not going to get 5% body fat and be jacked. And so I'm going to pick something more reasonable and I'm going to let that other part go. I'm going to kill off that little whiny part that says, well, I want to have a six pack. It's like, no, shut up. That's not important to me. Or you decide it is and you get it, right? It's kind of, if I was going to summarize it and distill it down, manning up means to remove any kind of ineffectual and unhelpful emotional whirling. You're not whining, you're not complaining, you're just focusing on what's at hand and what needs to get done or, stopped or whatever. And, you cut through your emotional crap and do it, right? That's, I think, a pretty universal understanding of what it means to man up. Now, that kind of understanding of manning up, it's really good. It's powerful. But I think that this sort of more macho mindset, people like it and they find a lot of power in it, and then they start kind of taking it too far. And this mindset can actually become incredibly counterproductive. And I think in order for me to illustrate how that happens, we almost need to look at the link between, this idea of using force and masculinity. We got to see how these things are connected. Why is it that the use of force is connected with masculinity? It's connected with this aggressive mentality. Well, first, we got to understand that, men have been primarily responsible for, fighting everything since the dawn of time. We were pretty much the fighters. And so in our biology, we've got this part that we can really turn on. It's a very aggressive part. And that's really what we're talking about when we're saying manning up. It's like turn that part of your brain on that can cut through feelings and then do hard and difficult things. And this part, it's like a machinery. It's like a program that runs inside of us. And if you can learn how to turn that on consciously, you gain a lot of power. But that's not the only machinery we've got inside of ourselves. You also got a part that's really kind of hesitant to engage in conflict, that really wants to seek, foster kind of self-protection. It really wants to be comfortable. And so what has happened is that, all right, we've all got this protection, runaway sort of flight programming, and we got this fight programming. And like on a personal level, you're probably pretty much fine defaulting to this flight level. At least like if we're going to look way back in the primal times, you're better off avoiding a confrontation than getting into it. But when things start getting into a social scenario, conflict becomes much more important, I would say, especially if we're going to look at the terms, like we're talking about tribal warfare, okay? Going back into a tribal period, if you were getting attacked by the enemy and you didn't engage your fight mechanism, if you didn't attack that enemy, well, what would that mean? Well, either, if you froze, well, you would die. Chances are you would just die, okay? If you ran away, either, if the enemy won, well, then you'd probably still die anyway eventually. Or if your side won, chances are you die anyway because you're the people that you ran from and abandoned, they'd probably kill you too, because there's never been, much tolerance for cowardice in wartime. So the masculine ideal then, because of that, it favors aggression. And so we construct this ideal of the masculine man being the man who shows up and he fights and he gets stuff done and that kind of stuff. And so that's one piece of it. But, it gets even more, I think, intense than that, to the point where it's like, most of us, we think about this idea of shoot first, ask questions later as a stupid idea. Who would shoot first and ask questions later? Well, if we bring it back down to this kind of baseline level of violence, that can actually make sense. And we don't even need to go back to primal times to make sense of that. I mean, like, look at, modern soldiers, over in Iraq or the Middle East, okay? Like, if they are on like a patrol or whatever, there might be a little kid or, a woman strapped with explosives sent to them, right? And so we have to look at what are the worst cases scenario. If they don't, the worst case scenario between if they don't shoot and that person is strapped with explosives versus if they do shoot and maybe they're totally innocent. Okay, those are those two worst case scenarios. If they shoot and that person isn't strapped with explosives, well, then what is that? That's a tragedy, right? That's a tragedy. They just killed an innocent person. That's terrible. But what's worse, that or not shooting someone who is strapped with explosives, who kills not only themselves, you, and all the people around you? That's even worse. So it's like, and I think that's kind of like a historical kind of scenario where it's like, all right, do I trust these guys or not? Well, if I kill them and they're innocent, that sucks. That's terrible. That's a tragedy. But if I don't kill them and I should have, well, they might kill me, my family, and everyone else. They might have our village get taken over and that sort of thing. And so I think that this tendency toward aggression is overtly associated with masculinity, because masculinity has been primarily in these roles of kind of being the protector, okay? And when you're in the protector mode, it's usually better off for you to act first, ask questions later. And I think that since this has been a part of masculinity, it also trickles down into subtler things, not just super intense combat and violence situations. I think it has to do with even just dealing with like internal stuff, right? Like what if the default masculine response then to any kind of internal resistance or negative emotion is to just kill it. Because that's what this part does. It's like this warrior energy. It's here to like put stuff down and repress it and that sort of thing. And that's great if it's just kind of like a little whiny part of you that does need to be put down. But what if it's not? What if it's something that's trauma based? What if there's like a real deep issue here? And this is where things get really screwed up, is if you attack something that actually needs to be healed. Okay, men suffer from trauma as much as women. And if you treat trauma with aggression, that's not going to make anything better. That's just going to make things worse. And I think perhaps this could have something to do with why, maybe not the only thing to do, obviously, like for soldiers having PTSD, obviously they're exposed to very extreme circumstances and very traumatic things, but like they're also very much taught to be tough and very, very powerful. And so I think a lot of these, tough guys, they just kind of repress that stuff. They don't actually process it properly because they've become so enmeshed in this warrior mentality that like they're attacking things that need to be healed. And so I think what the balanced masculine here then is learning how to be both a hunter and a healer. And you need to make sure you've got a pulse on this stuff. Otherwise, when you go to man up, you might actually be making something worse. You might actually be tearing something down that needs to be, understood and fixed. So anytime you're dealing with any kind of intense emotional resistance, this is why it's important to be able to analyze yourself. You got to look at your feelings. You need to be able to understand what's there, okay? If you can articulate the feeling that's there, well, then you can understand it rationally. You can say, all right, is this a useful and, rational thought? If it's not, if it's just a lie or a deception or something like that that's inauthentic, not really connected with who you are, like if I say I got work to do and a part of me says I don't want to do it, well, it's like, is that representative of who I am? Is that a part of me that like needs to be healed? No, it's probably just a part of me that needs to be slapped. Be like, shut up, we're doing it, okay? But if I was experiencing like extreme fear and anxiety around moving forward with work, thinking that, I absolutely can't, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of like getting this kind of stuff. I'm not worthy of success. Everyone's going to hate me, these kinds of things. Just telling that part to shut up, I don't know if that really works. You need to look at it and be like, okay, well, actually, the way you're looking at this is sick. It's dysfunctional and it needs to be healed. It needs to be repaired. And so that's what this healer part comes into. And I think that for men, the warrior kind of supersedes the healer in terms of, which archetype you are most comfortable in. But I think they're both fully masculine. They're both things that a man can wear equally well. I think that you need to develop really both, though. You need to be able to learn how to look at a situation and come in with that healing touch, that strong leadership quality. I guess you could say that might even be a more accurate term for it, instead of like healer, just the leader, because that then even fits more fully into this warrior sort of thing. It's like a warrior on one hand puts down his enemies, but he also brings up and supports the good. Right? That's what that's what a real leader does. Like a commander of a army or whatever. I'm coming up with this idea as I'm speaking to you guys live here. So forgive me if it's a little bit muddled, but I think that my main point here is pretty clear: is that you can't kill things that need to be healed, but you also can't just dispel the fact that sometimes stupid stuff comes up inside of you and it just needs to get put down. So that's what I have for you guys today. Hopefully you found this interesting and insightful, all that good stuff. Please give me feedback. Let me know what you think of this. Am I putting out too many videos? Am I not putting out enough videos? Let me know what you guys think of the channel, the direction I've been taking it. And I appreciate all your support. So stay sharp. I'll see you in the next one.